What's posing challenges to negotiations, and what options the president says he has in his hands? Gas prices holding above $4 nationwide as the U.S. weighs another major oil release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. What it could mean for prices at the pump. President Donald Trump signs a bill to end a 76-day DHS shutdown, but key border agencies are left out. What it means for federal workers and national security. The Department of Justice launches investigations into dozens of Illinois school districts, what officials are looking for and how it could impact parents' rights. Lawmakers move to crack down on AI chatbots after families warn of dangerous impacts on children. The new bipartisan bill gaining momentum on Capitol Hill. The Pentagon partnering with major AI companies to bring advanced tools into classified operations. What it means for national security and the tech race.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. President Trump revealing that he's dissatisfied with the new proposal by Iran and suggesting he could choose to escalate strikes. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, good afternoon. What did we just learn from the president?
Good afternoon to you as well, Don. So as he departed the White House this afternoon, President Trump telling us that he's not satisfied with a latest proposal by the Iranian regime, while also noting that it remains to be seen whether the Iranian officials will ever get there on a potential deal. He's also noting that there's confusion among Iran's disjointed leadership. Watch.
We just had a conversation with Iran. Let's see what happens. But I would say that I am not happy. Their leadership is very disjointed. Very argumentative with each other. They come back, one says one thing, one says another. They're very confused. They've got to come up with the right deal. At this moment, I'm not satisfied with what they're doing.
And specifically, the president says that there are now 2 to 3, maybe 4 different groups of leadership in Iran who are, quote, not getting along with each other. And the president also says that that puts the U.S. in a bad position as a different group is also coming up with different proposals. And meanwhile, President today also confirming that last night he was briefed on the military options he right now has by the Central Command. And he says today that it boils down to 2 options, either striking a deal or escalating military strikes. Watch.
I mean, do we want to go and just blast the hell out of him and finish him forever, or do we want to try and make a deal? I mean, those are the options.
Do you want to go blast the hell out of him?
I'd prefer not. On a human basis, I prefer not.
And John, the president today also stressing the effectiveness of an ongoing military blockade against Iran in the Strait of Hormuz. The president, as well as the Central Command, saying that the goal of that is to squeeze the Iranian regime economically. The Central Command, meanwhile, today also releasing new footage showing the ongoing blockade, while also announcing that so far 45 commercial vessels have been turned around as a result of the Navy blockade. Back to you.
And Iris, as you know, today marks a 60-day congressional deadline for the war. What does that mean, and how's the president responding?
Sure, Don. So today marks a deadline established by the 1973 War Powers Act, which required Congress to either declare a war or authorize the use of force within 60 days. Meanwhile, it will also allow for a 30-day extension, potentially, of this conflict. The administration now says that they are in active conversations with Congress, but also suggesting that the ongoing ceasefire might pause this clock and also would not need, for example, a reauthorization. And President Trump today also pushing back, saying that this rule hasn't really been enforced in history, and his administration should not be treated differently. Watch.
They consider it totally unconstitutional, but we're always in touch with Congress. But nobody's ever sought it before. Nobody's ever asked for it before. It's never been used before. Why should we be different?
And meanwhile, Don, the president right now is on his way to Florida, where he will be talking about the economic benefits that his administration is delivering for American seniors. It will mark his first public event since Saturday's major assassination attempt, as called by the White House. Meanwhile, when asked today about if he's concerned about his safety, the president says he's not even thinking about it. Don.
All right, Iris, thank you. President Trump signs a funding bill ending 76 days of a Department of Homeland Security shutdown. The bill restores funding across the department, except for ICE and Customs and Border Protection. Federal employees who have been furloughed and who have gone without pay will be returning to work and receive back pay. Calls to pass the bill intensified following the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Funding for ICE and CBP is taking place through a reconciliation process, which the House approved on Wednesday. President Trump also signed a 45-day extension of key surveillance powers hours before they were set to expire. Section 702 of FISA allows U.S. intelligence agencies to collect information on foreign targets located outside the U.S. President Trump signed legislation ending the Department of Homeland Security shutdown. Meanwhile, in a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court struck down Louisiana's congressional map. Joining us now to discuss is Andrew Arthur, former immigration judge and law and policy fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies. Andrew, good afternoon. Good to see you. So off the top here, can we get your reactions to President Trump signing the bill? I mean, the department has been shut down for 76 days, the longest ever. What did Democrats get out of this?
You know, it's funny, Don, because this thing dragged on for, an extended period of time, the longest shutdown in American history. And yet none of the 10 demands that Democrats made, they got. And it was a little unclear in the middle of all of this what exactly it was that the Democrats were attempting to accomplish. Now, there were a couple of things that were on the Democrat wish list, such as requiring ICE officers to wear identifying symbols, and requiring judicial warrants to enter private residences that border czar Tom Homan actually had agreed to 6 weeks ago, and yet it didn't move the needle at all. Really, what this shutdown has done is give more money to ICE and CBP, not less, and to not really make any changes that were demanded. But there is one key thing that this particular shutdown did do. It created a horrible precedent going forward as it relates not only to funding ICE and CBP, but to funding any agency of the federal government that the party in the minority doesn't like. So if Republicans find themselves in the minority in the future and Democrats are trying to push a big EPA funding bill, then all that the Republicans have to do is refuse to go along with EPA at all. They can starve the department, the agency of funding, for as long as they want. And, unfortunately, things in D.C. aren't getting any better. They're getting worse.
Yeah, not a very good precedent. Can you also talk to us about what has been the impact of this shutdown? It is the longest in history. So what were some of the things that we saw?
So one of the things that we saw were extremely long lines at security at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta, George H.W. Bush Intercontinental in Houston, and a handful of other airports. We were having days where 40-50% of the TSA agents were calling in sick because they weren't getting paid, and that's understandable. And we also saw about 1,000 TSA officers who quit. And it's going to be very difficult to backfill those roles. Hopefully those people will come back now that they're getting funded. But they weren't getting paid at all. And that really slowed travel until the new DHS Secretary, Mark Wayne Mullen, reprogrammed some money within the department's larger budget. They have, some money that was left over. They were able to pay them. But they didn't have enough money that they were going to be able to pay them past the end of this week. So it's a good thing that it reopened right now. We also saw Coast Guard officers who weren't getting paid, Secret Service agents who weren't getting paid, which is particularly salient point given the latest assassination attempt on President Trump. So, yeah, the whole idea behind creating this department was that we would put all the key homeland security aspects of the government into one department. Unfortunately, it's proven how vulnerable that has rendered that department to be.
Yeah, and let's remember ICE is not funded in this package, CBP is not funded, and Republicans are going to try to use the budget reconciliation to get around the filibuster, right? To fund ICE and Border Patrol separately. In your view, what might be the challenges, the biggest hurdles that you may see?
When it comes to reconciliation, it's a pretty straightforward process that can pass on a party line vote because Republicans have majorities in both houses of Congress. One of the things that you may see, though, Don, is an attempt to put other wish list items on reconciliation. That'll slow it down because of something called the Byrd process. Whenever a reconciliation bill or any funding bill goes before the Senate, it can be ruled out of order by the Senate parliamentarian who is nonpartisan if it doesn't directly relate to the expenditure of funding or cutting funding for some specific activity. You may remember about 3 years ago, Democrats who controlled Congress at the time attempted to pass a major amnesty on a reconciliation bill without any Republican votes. Elizabeth McDonough, the Senate parliamentarian, ruled that out of order in a process that's known as the Byrd bath. The whole process is named after former Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia, and unfortunately, it's spurred a lot of humorous titles out of that. But yeah, so that could slow it down. But I think that both Majority Leader John Thune and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson want a clean bill. They want a skinny reconciliation that's going to fund ICE and CBP for the next 3 years, get us to the next administration, and hopefully passions will cool by then, and Washington can go back to its normal work.
Yeah, let's keep a lookout on that, even with the slim majority in the House and the Senate, which might be a factor, but might not be a factor. So one last thing here, Andrew, that I wanted to ask you about is the Supreme Court ruling 6-3 that Louisiana's congressional map was unconstitutional. So just overall, how did the judges come to the conclusion that race was used too heavily? Does it weaken Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act that says states shouldn't dilute the voting power of minority groups?
Yeah, and it's important, Don. It doesn't reverse Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. It doesn't do any of the thing of the sort. The purpose of the Voting Rights Act, much like the purpose of the 15th Amendment, is to ensure that states do not discriminate against given racial groups or minority groups in the course of setting voting rules. What the Supreme Court made clear is that it doesn't permit, at the same time, states to advantage specific groups by carving out special districts for people based on race. It actually made that determination based upon the fact that the world has changed a lot since 1964 when that particular law went into effect, let alone 1868 when the 15th Amendment did. What we see now is that the primarily southern states, the states of the former Confederacy, now run clean governments. They run clean votes. And we don't see the sort of discrimination that we saw in the Reconstruction period or in the 1960s. So, that's not really an issue anymore. But the other point that they made was that the court has done everything that it can to get the inferior courts, the district and the circuit courts, out of the business of making decisions on political gerrymandering, partisan gerrymandering in the state. We may not like it. The American people don't like it. But it is one of those things that, unfortunately, our political system has led to. What various plaintiffs have attempted to do is get around that rule against, weighing in on partisan gerrymandering by repackaging it in terms of racial gerrymandering. And so that's really the part that the Supreme Court struck down, Justice Alito and the majority 6-3 opinion. And that's consistent with the Roberts Court's general position that it doesn't want the federal judiciary involved in political issues. It leaves those things to the political branches both at the federal level and now at the state level.
Well, all right, Andrew, you give some of the clearest explanations when it comes to legal issues. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it.
The Justice Department investigating dozens of Illinois schools over gender-related instruction, what it means for parents and students. We'll tell you about it after this break. Stay tuned.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now. ShenYun.com.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids. I was finally following my dreams. Just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids. Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you. But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that helped save my life. When you give $19 a month with your credit card, we'll send you this special t-shirt to show you're a part of our community of monthly donors.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. Your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor.
The Department of Justice launching investigations into 36 public school districts in Illinois. The inquiry focusing on how sexual orientation and gender ideology topics are taught in pre-K through 12 classrooms. The probe will examine whether schools are informing parents of their right to opt their children out of such instruction if it's being taught. Investigators will also review policies on access to bathrooms, locker rooms, and girls' sports teams. Officials say the investigation will assess potential violations of Title IX, which prohibits sex-based orientation discrimination in public education programs. The review will also consider Supreme Court precedents on parental rights. Attorney General Harmeet Dillon says the department aims to ensure parents are not kept in the dark about classroom instruction affecting their children. And the Department of Justice is also suing the state of New Jersey. The legal challenge targeting laws that allow in-state tuition and financial aid for illegal immigrants. The complaint argues the policies violate federal law and unfairly discriminate against U.S. citizens. This by offering benefits not equally available to them. The lawsuit seeks to block provisions requiring colleges to grant reduced tuition rates and financial assistance regardless of immigration status. The case is part of a broader push by the Trump administration to prevent illegal immigrants from receiving taxpayer-funded benefits. Guardrails on artificial intelligence. Talks are underway in Congress right now after testimony from families who say AI chatbots push their children to self-harm. Senators advanced a bill that would ban so-called companion chatbots for children. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
Introduce him to the concept of self-harm and then urge him to take his own life. This should not happen in the United States of America, and it certainly should not happen for profit. But that is what is happening today. Mandy Furness.
Republicans and Democrats unanimously advanced the GUARD Act. It would ban AI companies from letting children use companion chatbots for interpersonal relationships or emotional interactions. Under the bill, AI makers would have to verify users' ages. It's the first time the Senate has formally taken action to address safety risks AI poses to children. Families who have witnessed the harm firsthand previously testified about how their children were exposed to sexual material and goaded into self-harm, in the worst cases leading to child suicides.
On Adam's last night, ChatGPT coached him on stealing liquor, which it had previously explained to him could, quote, dull the body's instinct to survive. It told him how to make sure the noose the noose that he would use to hang himself was strong enough to suspend him. Then,
the father told lawmakers that the chatbot spoke about suicide to his son Adam over 1,000 times in a 6-month period. Under the newly advanced bill, AI makers would face a $250,000 criminal fine for offering a chatbot that encourages minors to engage in sexually explicit behavior or illegal physical violence.
We can't trust the big tech companies or AI enterprises to have a conscience.
A mother who lost her son to suicide told senators that AI makers make chatbots to purposely hook children online to profit.
They give these chatbots anthropomorphic mannerisms to seem human. They are designed to mirror and validate children's emotions. They program the chatbots with sophisticated memory that captures psychological profiles of our children.
Maria lost her firstborn son, Sewell Setzer III. He took his life at age 14 after a virtual relationship with an AI chatbot character.
We know they could put up those guardrails. They should do it anyway. It is sick that we're having to sit here to make them do that.
In addition to criminal penalties, the GUARD Act would mandate that AI chatbots disclose their non-human and non-professional status for all users. The bill now moves to the Senate floor for a final vote. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Now to Washington State, where a suspect is in custody after stabbing an incident at a high school. At least 6 people were injured in the attack yesterday. Officials say 5 students and a security officer were hospitalized. One of the students, the suspect, is in custody. The incident took place at Foss High School in Tacoma, a port city 30 miles south of Seattle. Tacoma Public Schools canceled classes at the school today and said it would have additional counselors on hand Monday to support students and staff. Camp Mystic has dropped plans to reopen this summer. The move comes after backlash from grieving families and Texas lawmakers. The all-girls Christian camp had planned to welcome nearly 900 campers back to its site along the Guadalupe River, where floodwaters killed 25 girls and 2 teenage counselors last July. But mounting pressure forced a reversal, the camp withdrawing its application for a 2026 license. In a statement, Camp Mystic said no summer season should move forward while families continue to grieve and investigations remain underway. Hearings revealed serious safety failures, including poor emergency planning, inadequate staff training, and delays in evacuation as floodwaters surged. The flooding killed at least 136 people in the region. A proposal to require voter ID in California is now one step closer to going before voters. The newly qualified ballot measure could bring major changes to how ballots are cast and verified in the state. NTD's Christina Corona has the details.
A major change to how Californians vote could be coming, requiring ID and citizenship verification. The California Secretary of State says the measure has qualified for the November ballot after supporters submitted enough signatures. Currently, most California voters don't have to show ID. They just state their name, address, and sign before casting a ballot. Under current law, voters also attest under penalty of perjury that they are U.S. citizens when they register. But this measure would add new requirements like showing a government-issued ID in person or providing part of an ID number when voting by mail. It would also require election officials to verify voters' citizenship and track how many verifications have taken place each year. California gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton told Fox News that voter ID effort may increase GOP turnout in California governor's race.
We've got a big advantage this year, which is we've got in California voter ID on the ballot. Republicans really support that. So I think that's going to help us get a big turnout in November. Of course, we need to persuade some Democrats and independents as well. But I think the argument for change is overwhelming, and that's why I'm confident we can pull it off.
One resident said,
"Yeah, I think you should have an ID, only because you should be you should be a resident. You should definitely be, your registration should be accurate. And if you don't have an ID, they can't really verify that you're the voter that is on the putting the votes in."
And when it comes to checking citizenship,
that's always a hot topic. I think they're trying to eliminate some of the illegal people or people that are here, but they're just not a citizen.
He says it could encourage some people to complete the path to citizenship.
They should go all the way through and be the citizen, go get the citizenship, or at least, get the green card to be able to be, a voting say in this.
Opponents argue the measure could create barriers for eligible voters who don't have proper identification and say non-citizen voting is already illegal. California voters will have the final say this November. Reporting from the city of Arcadia, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Thermos has recalled 8 million food jars and bottles due to issues with the stopper in the lid. The recall includes the Thermos Stainless King 3000 and 3020 food jars, and the Thermos Sportsman 3010 food and beverage bottles. The products were sold between 2008 and 2024 at Target, Walmart, and Amazon, among other retailers. Thermos says the stopper of the faulty products has no pressure relief in the center. When food or drinks are stored in the products for an extended period of time, the stopper can forcefully eject when opened. There have been more than 24 reports of consumers being struck by a stopper when opening the containers, causing cuts or bruises. 3 people suffered permanent vision loss after being struck in the eye. The U.S.-Iran conflict that started on February 28th has reached a critical 60-day mark. We'll talk about this with the former lead intelligence officer of the U.S. Army after this break. Stay tuned.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Today's seniors are enjoying life more than ever before, and part of that comes from the independence of driving.
However, car insurance for older drivers becomes more expensive the older we get.
Just because I'm a senior, and maybe you are too, do we really have to pay outrageously high insurance rates? Well, the answer is no, we don't.
When was the last time you checked to make sure you're paying the lowest available rate? Well, maybe it's time to give your car insurance a tune-up, just to make sure your rates are running properly.
You change your oil, you change your tires. Well, maybe it's time to change your car's insurance company.
Are you paying too much for your auto insurance? If so, you're just throwing your money away.
So the only way to really know if you're paying too much is to call the number on your screen.
1-800-952-5196. 1-800-952-5196.
You'll speak with a licensed insurance agent. They may have an insurance plan that could lower your yearly premiums by hundreds of dollars.
Seniors can save money on their car insurance.
So call right now and find out just how much money you might be able to save.
Come on, call Call now.
You may be able to save a lot of money, maybe hundreds of dollars a year. Just call the number on your screen and speak with a licensed insurance agent.
Yes, it is possible for seniors to save on car insurance. You could lower your premiums by hundreds of dollars a year.
As a responsible driver, you always check your gauges, right? And you check for other cars and pedestrians. You check your oil and you check your mirrors.
Well, now is the time to check on your auto insurance rates. You need to make sure that you're not paying more than you need to. Call the number on your screen right now.
1-800-952-5196. 1-800-952-5196.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
As the Pentagon expands its technological edge, new warnings are emerging about who's backing America's adversaries. At the hearing yesterday, General Dan Kane signaling that the Russian government is assisting the Iranian regime in its war with the United States. The highest-ranking U.S. general responding affirmatively to a question about whether there is Russian involvement, speaking at yesterday's Senate hearing. General Dan Kane put it this way, saying, "I think there's actions and activities. I'm mindful of the hearing room we're in, but there's definitely some action there." And to discuss the latest on Iran is Kervin Aucoin, joining us now, former lead intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance coordinator for the U.S. Army. So Kervin, good afternoon. Thank you for being here today, as always. So Trump told reporters that the only two options at hand right now for Iran is come to a deal or the U.S. is going to bomb them. So from what you've seen deep down, does the Iranian regime right now want to make a deal with the U.S.?
Well, first of all, Don, it's always good to talk to you. It's great to be here. And you put up a perfect question as the first question here. Does the Iranian regime want to make a deal? I think, first of all, what we need to figure out is who is running Iran right now. They're rolling out, commentary from the supreme leader who can't talk, who is, for all intents and purposes, in a coma at this point. So who is controlling Iran right now? If it is the IRGC, I would say they do not want to make a deal with the United States. If there is a moderate leadership within Iran, I think that moderate leadership does want to make a deal. And I think that the headlines miss the point here. If you're pulling from Iranian media is going to say that, they have won this conflict and they should not make a deal. But leadership within Iran, that moderate leadership, the president of Iran, I believe, does want to make a deal to stop what the United States has done, which has completely collapsed the economy and the military of Iran right now.
Okay, so let's say if the IRGC is in control of Iran right now, you said it doesn't want to make a deal. So on this point specifically, if the IRGC is in control, why does it prefer to not make a deal and have potentially its critical infrastructure destroyed?
Yeah, it's a great question. Why would they not want to make a deal? Because they don't want to seem weak, because a weak Iran, this is what actually got Iraq into a war with the United States, right? So Saddam Hussein would not admit that he did not have weapons of mass destruction because he knew that if he admitted that Iran would attack him. So Iran and the IRGC understands if they present themselves as weak, as somebody that would capitulate to Western powers, and quite honestly, those Middle Eastern powers of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, they would seem weak to those countries, and they would lose their influence in the region. They would lose influence over Hezbollah. They would lose influence over Hamas. and the Houthis in Yemen. So that's what the IRGC is trying to hold on to, is this this fractured power that they have over certain parts of the Middle East.
But I guess then the immediate question after that is, let's say President Trump goes ahead with the bombing of critical infrastructure. Can the IRGC survive after the fact?
Absolutely not. If the U.S. goes full force, shock and awe across Iran through critical infrastructure, they would not survive. The IRGC knows that. So what they're doing right now is playing this this game of, or this balance of projecting power publicly while also privately having conversations with the United States. And we just found out, today that they have actually put together a new proposal for a peace plan with the United States. That is something that they tried to put out privately between the mediators in Pakistan, but that has come out. And so now we know they are trying to come to an agreement, but they want to come to an agreement where they don't look weak, where it doesn't feel like they've capitulated to the United States. And that's why what's still on the table are uranium enrichment and the fact that Israel will not attack their proxies. That is what they feel is the real threat here, is that Israel is going to gain control of the Middle East by pivoting towards those same powers, the Qatar, the UAE, Jordan, countries of that magnitude.
Okay, so this deal that Iran has proposed, how much do you think is that a result of the pressure from the blockade of Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz? How much pressure is that putting on Iran that their oil containers are filling up?
Well, Don, as an intelligence analyst, I don't like to work in absolutes. I always like to work in probabilities. But for this time, I would say 100% that this is because of the pressure that's being put on in the Strait of Hormuz. We've talked about this before. The millions of dollars that Iran is losing every single day that the U.S. blockade is open right now. And so they are losing. We are seeing, there are some reports that there is a complete collapse of the economy in Iran. And look, it's not so much about the pressure that the U.S. has towards that shock and awe, those missiles that they can drop on Iranian soil. I think what we will see in the near future, if the IRGC does not come to a peace agreement with the United States and the economy collapses, is that just like anywhere, when an economy collapses, the people will rise up and they will go after whoever they perceive as in a leadership. So right now it's perceived that the IRGC is leading Iran. If that economy absolutely collapses, the people will rise up. And the people in the borders of Iran, that is the most dangerous thing that can attack the IRGC right now.
Okay, so of course we have to assume that what you just said right now, the Iranian regime fully understands and has taken that into consideration as part of its calculus in this whole thing. So my question is, does it fear internal unrest more, or does it fear external pressure or threats more?
So we're talking about internal unrest as the Iranian people. I don't think they have any worries about fractures within the IRGC, but they absolutely worry about the Iranian people and their fractures of the civilian population. I'd also say another indicator, we always talk about indicators and warnings in the intelligence community. One of the indicators to look for here is if the Iranian military, which is outside of the IRGC, if the Iranian military starts to back the Iranian people and they start to fracture, at that point, the IRGC has lost control. You have a coup within Iran, and I definitely believe through my experience in the Middle East, that is the most dangerous thing for the IRGC. And if they identify that the Iranian military is turning against them, they will for sure try to come to an agreement with the United States that also allows them to retain power and open up their economy.
Okay, so when you say it's extremely dangerous that there's unrest with the Iranian people, the Iranian people protesting, this danger, is it potentially a change in ideology of the Iranian regime or full change of the regime due to these Iranian protests?
Yeah, I think if something like that happens, the IRGC, they still remember those images of Gaddafi, right? We all remember that happening when the people overtook, and the disturbing images of what they did to Gaddafi in Libya. And that is the dangerous thing. That is the most dangerous course of action that can happen right now. And so what does that mean? That means people pulling the IRGC into the streets and making, showing a force against them. And if they have the military, if the people of Iran have the Iranian military backing that, that means an entire collapse of the IRGC. And you no longer have an IRGC backed in a corner. You have them dragged into the streets as a public display of violence to the world.
Okay, just one final question, Kervin. Is it completely necessary to have the Israeli military backing the Iranian people in terms of protest or overthrowing the regime? Because the Iranian people on its own, they don't have weapons, right? So do they need the help of Israel?
That is such a great question, Don. I think Israel would find itself in a bad way if they would try a regime change, if they would back the people of Iran. I always talk about this. The U.S. is not very good with regime change. Israel not very good with regime change. I don't think that is one country that is really bad at something. I think all countries who attempt this, look, we tried, meaning the United States, the UK, Western forces tried this with Russia during World War II. And it failed miserably to try to collapse the Soviet Union there. So I would pause and I would push back against regime change that is forced upon by the likes of the United States or Israel. But I do think that the Iranian people are ready to rise up. And I think that's going to be something that the Iranian military is going to have to be a part of, not so much some Western forces. We've got to get out of this habit of trying to solve Middle Eastern problems with Western ideals.
Okay, well said, Kervin. Thank you for speaking with us today.
Don, as always, it's been a pleasure, and stay safe out there.
Thank you. The national average price of gasoline was around $4.40 per gallon this morning, according to AAA. The U.S. is considering releasing up to around 92 million barrels of crude oil from its Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The Energy Department now soliciting bids from companies. The release is structured as an emergency exchange. That means participating firms must return the oil later, along with additional barrels. The DOE says this continues President Trump's 172 million barrel release, part of a coordinated 400 million barrel action with International Energy Agency member nations. The initial 172 million barrel release was announced in March amid rising prices during the Iran war. Delivery is expected to last about over 120 days. About 80 million barrels have been already released through previous exchanges. The United States is working to disrupt Iran's oil trade amid the ongoing conflict with the regime. The State Department says sanctions are targeting Tehran's primary revenue stream to fund terrorism and destabilize the Middle East. Today, the State Department said it sanctioned several entities, among the targets a China-based petroleum terminal operator, which the department says has imported tens of millions of barrels of sanctioned Iranian crude. According to the State Department, the company has enabled the flow of billions of dollars to Tehran using sophisticated evasion schemes. Meanwhile, the Treasury imposed sanctions on Iran's financial infrastructure. The sanctions targeted 3 Iranian currency exchange houses and their affiliates that fund the regime. The State Department says the sanctions disrupt Iran's ability to fund proxies, develop weapons, and threaten the region. And breaking just now, President Trump saying the U.S. will increase tariffs on European Union vehicles in the coming week. Writing on Truth Social, the president saying, quote, "I am pleased to announce that based on the fact that the European Union is not complying with our fully agreed to trade deal, next week I will be increasing tariffs charged to the European Union for cars and trucks coming into the United States. The tariff will be increased to 25%. The president adding, "It is fully understood and agreed that if they produce cars and trucks in the USA plants, there will be no tariff." Trump says more than $100 billion is being invested in new auto plants, calling it a record in the history of car and truck manufacturing. Many of those facilities are currently under construction. He says the plants will employ American workers and open soon. The Pentagon announced agreements with 7 AI tech giants today, including OpenAI, Google, and Elon Musk's SpaceX. The deals will allow the government to use their advanced AI capabilities in classified settings. The move comes after the War Department labeled AI startup Anthropic a supply chain risk following a recent contract dispute. More than 1 million personnel have already been using the department's official AI platform. In Elon Musk's lawsuit against Sam Altman, Musk's attorney warns about the risks posed by artificial intelligence. NTD's David Lam has more from the courthouse.
Elon Musk's lawyer says that we all could die as a result of artificial intelligence due to extinction. Now, this comes as the lawyer was trying to clarify what one of its key expert witness is allowed to say. But the judge says that this case is not about AI safety. And she indicated that Musk is creating a company that's in the same field as OpenAI. During the trial in Oakland, California, Musk said xAI is 1/10 the size of OpenAI, and the difference between his for-profit companies and OpenAI was that OpenAI started as a charity. The first week of the high-profile Musk v. Altman case concluded, with Musk suing OpenAI's Sam Altman, among others. Musk alleges they violated OpenAI's non-profit mission by becoming for-profit. Musk also indicated that it's standard practice for AI companies to use other AIs for training when asked if xAI had used OpenAI's technology. Musk finished his testimony on Thursday, and Jared Birchall, who manages Musk's finances, took the stand. Birchall was questioned on his background and duties at Musk's organizations. The OpenAI trial is resuming back on Monday, and so far this week has been packed with other members of the press and lawyers. Now, Musk is seeking for OpenAI to revert back to a nonprofit and for the executives to step down. Reporting in Oakland, California, David Lam, NTD News.
President Trump's trip to China is coming up this month. The Treasury Secretary saying he discussed the president's upcoming visit with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng in an online meeting. Following the video call, Besson posted on X that the meeting was both candid and comprehensive. Besson saying, quote, "I stressed that China's recent provocative extraterritorial regulations have a chilling effect on global supply chains. I look forward to a productive summit between President Trump and President Xi in Beijing." His comments follow new rules from Beijing, measures that pave the way for China to punish foreign companies that shift their sourcing of goods out of the country. In a separate meeting, Secretary of State Marco Rubio talked with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. The phone call marks the first publicly known exchange between the top U.S. and Chinese diplomats since the beginning of the Iran war. President Trump plans to visit China on May 14th and 15th and is expected to meet with Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping. The FBI says a network of hackers backed by the Chinese Communist Party is rapidly expanding its operations. The assistant director of the Bureau's cyber division warning that they're subject to arrest if they leave China. The FBI's warning comes days after the extradition of Chinese national Xu Jiwei from Italy to the United States. The Chinese contractor is accused of participating in widespread hacking campaigns carried out in 2020 and 2021 at the direction of the CCP. The Department of Justice alleges that Xu and several co-conspirators targeted U.S. research on COVID-19 vaccines, treatment, and testing. According to the DOJ, Xu reported the hacking to the Chinese Ministry of State Security. An officer within the ministry then directed Xu to target specific email accounts belonging to virologists and immunologists. Xu faces a 9-count indictment for his alleged involvement in the hacking scheme. President Trump weighing in on the future of pro golf, calling for LIV Golf players to rejoin the PGA Tour as the rival league faces a major funding shakeup. More news after this break. Stay tuned.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options. Only at selectspecs.com.
Hi, my name is Brady. When I was born, my parents thought everything was okay. My mom and dad were so excited to take me home.
I still get goosebumps telling this story. Several days in, his skin started to become very cold and clammy. We noticed that he had become blue around his mouth, and something was just very off.
We packed up as fast as we could. Brady stopped breathing twice on the way to the pediatrician. And that was one of the #1 things that just haunts me to this day.
I was born with a congenital heart defect called aortic coarctation. If my parents waited just 1 more hour to drive me to the hospital, I would not be here today. But thanks to research funded by the American Heart Association, I had heart surgery that saved my life. But not every kid is as lucky as me, which is why we need your help. Just call the number on the screen or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help. Get people trained in CPR. Get more hospitals certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. And help fund the next medical breakthroughs to help save kids like me.
When you donate to the American Heart Association, you're helping save lives like my son. And now, my son is happy and healthy thanks to the support of people like you.
When you call with your $19 a month, you'll get this really cool t-shirt as a thank you. Many children die from congenital heart defects. I can't wait to grow up to become a heart surgeon and fix babies' hearts, but until then, I'll keep helping the American Heart Association. So please join me. Just call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org to become a monthly donor and help save lives.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
President Trump talks a little golf. The president saying he believes golfers who joined LIV Golf should be welcomed back to play in the PGA League.
In 2 weeks, LIV is going to be at my course right here on the Potomac. No, I'd love to see LIV, but I do believe that all of the golfers should be playing, the great golfers should be playing against each other.
President Trump saying the Masters is so good because it includes both PGA and LIV players. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Wealth Fund officially pulled the plug on future funding for Live Golf yesterday. Now the rival league has to find a new path without the cash that it helped launch 4 years ago, as a threat to the golf establishment. FIFA has confirmed that Iran will be participating in the FIFA World Cup 2026 and that Iran therefore will play at least several matches in the United States.
Look, you know what? Let him play well. Johnny's fantastic. You know, he's a friend of mine, and he talked about it. I said, you do whatever you want. You can have them. You don't have to have them. Probably have a good team. I don't know. Do they have a good team? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea.
Would be hard to believe, actually. But I think let them play.
FIFA President Gianni Infantino confirmed the decision on Thursday. It means all 3 of its group stage matches will be played on U.S. soil. It comes amid heightened tensions between the U.S. and Iran and an ongoing war in the Middle East region to prevent Iran's nuclear capabilities. Iran's Football Federation chief had previously said Iran's team will boycott the U.S. and wanted its matches moved to Mexico. Iran's matches will begin at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles against New Zealand on June 15th, followed by one against Belgium on June 21st at the same venue. Today in history, an iconic piece of the New York skyline opened. The building has defined how the world sees New York for 95 years. The Empire State Building opened in New York City in 1931. The 102-story building was completed in just 410 days at 1,250 feet. It was the tallest building in the world when it opened. President Herbert Hoover marked the moment by remotely turning on the building's lights from Washington, D.C. The newest rhino at Chicago's Lincoln Park Zoo made her public debut this week. Take a look at this little adorable star. It's one of the newest residents at Chicago's Lincoln Park Zoo. She's an eastern black rhinoceros born on March 19th. Her name is Hazan, and it means treasured in Swahili. Zoo officials say while it actually took some time for the calf to step into the limelight, they say she is quite vocal behind the scenes. We're taking a short break now. We'll have more news after this break, so don't go away.